Hey guys, well, I haven't dropped a new review video in a bit, and the big reason for that is I spent most of the past month playing my way through Jurassic World Evolution, the complete version for the Switch. Now, I bought this game for one simple reason. It seemed to me like this was going to be the first and most awesome Jurassic Park video game ever made. And by all accounts, it was. Now, that's not to say it was perfect, but I should probably get into why I care about this so much. Retrospectively, Jurassic Park was one of the coolest movies that ever came out in the span of my life. It was just so damn important that I want to say it was the only time in my entire life that I ever went to the movie theater as a kid, and somehow literally every kid I knew from school was there at the same time watching this movie with me. Only time that ever happened. Anyway, the movie was great. You've seen it. Dinosaurs, scary raptors, Jeff Goldblum, Chaos Theory, good time was had by all. Now, after that movie, the video game was announced, and I was so psyched up to get this video game. It was a really big deal for me because I had inherited my NES from my uncle, who had disowned it and given me all the games for it. So this was literally one of the only times I ever went out of my way to get a new NES game for my NES. So, Jurassic Park for the NES. It seemed so cool. It had the logo on the cartridge, you could see a velociraptor if you held it up to the sun, but then you played the game and I just could not figure this game out. You walk around as Grant, it's a little bit like Zelda in the terms of the view. The shooting mechanics are so weak. To start with, you just get attacked by all these little pissant dinosaurs, and they all take multiple bullets to kill, and that's if you hit them. And then if you kill them, they only give you one bullet back. So they die, but then they respawn. And they respawn infinitely. So it sets up this really brutal video game where you can't figure out what you're doing, and as you're trying to figure it out, you're being just onslaughted by this never-ending spawn of infinitely respawning dinosaurs. It was a super merciless game. To this day, I have never even beaten the first level of Jurassic Park on the NES, despite getting it on my birthday and making a big deal out of it. Now, there was also the Super Nintendo version. I didn't own this, but I ran it from Blockbuster a few times. It, at first, feels like it's the same game as the NES version. It looks a lot like it, but with better graphics and better sounds, but in this version you have a taser, not a shotgun. So that seems like it's going to do you better, but it doesn't. Now, that big twist with the Super Nintendo version is while the NES version had these indoor segments, the Super Nintendo version replaces all the indoor segments with these bad 1993 first-person 3D graphics that look like a way worse version of Doom. And I just want to say that this ruins the game for me, because the first-person segments are laggy, they're claustrophobic. On top of that, they're extremely difficult to navigate because everything looks the same. Nothing makes sense. This is that old bad sort of 3D that used to give people motion sickness, and these segments drag on for so long that it just makes the game a slog. It occurs to me now as an adult that both of these games are designed around this mechanic of collecting dinosaur eggs to advance up the story. Now, I didn't realize that as a kid because I just got killed so fast, and I was just ruined by the bad shooting mechanics, but I want to say that understanding this now, I feel like there's a chance I could beat one of these games, and I guess I prefer to beat the NES one because it seems like the better game. The Super NES version seems like it was trying to be the definitive game, but the NES version just is way more interesting. It has more interesting levels, it has a better variety of dinosaurs to face off against, and it has boss stages, which strangely enough the Super Nintendo version does not. The entire Super Nintendo version just seems to take place in a massively larger version of the first stage from the NES version. And then it seems like they gutted the rest of the game to throw in these ugly first-person segments. I guess because Steven Spielberg was trying to push the game technologically. And I'm also horrified now realizing that no one has ever fixed these games. A lot of other games, there have been ROM hackers that have made playability hacks or patches to make these games a little bit better since their release, but I guess aside from me, no one really fondly remembers these games and cares about them. So Another huge issue with these games is that none of them actually save. So even if you did somehow make some progress in either one of them, unless you can beat the whole game in a single sitting, you're screwed because these games are just so brutally hard. Plus, if you die, you have to start over. Now, the NES one, apparently, if you know what you're doing, you can blaze through it in an hour if you're a god genius who never misses a single shot, knows exactly where everything is at all times, can get to everything without being swarmed by infinitely responding dinosaurs. Meanwhile, for the Super NES version, you can apparently beat that one in 2 hours if you're a god genius who can navigate through abysmally rendered, poorly frame-rated 3D Doom hallways with no guidance, claustrophobia, and again, a viewing speed of 3 frames per second. Now, I would just love it so much if these games got some sort of an official or unofficial remix where they just ironed out all the bugs, took what was good about them, got rid of what was bad about them, made them into proper experiences. I really don't think that's going to happen, but I can dream, can't I? So that just leaves me in a massive conundrum where, unfortunately, the NES version of Jurassic Park is the best Jurassic Park game. The Super NES version has better graphics, better music, better game mechanics, but it's just not a good game because it has those first-person sections. That brings the game down too much, and then it lacks the variety of adventures, levels, and bosses that the NES version has and the Super NES version does not. So those are the original Jurassic Park games for me, and they are in some ways my white whale. Now, beyond those first 2 Jurassic Park games, there were a whole bunch of others. There were some games where they learned from the mistakes of these games. They made them into side-scrollers, which made more sense for the time. You got to either play as a dude, or in some games, you play as a velociraptor. Unfortunately, I never played any of those games because I was poor as a kid. Now, I can't really judge them fairly now, but I can't really tell if they were well received, but I just don't really think they're worth my time. Tell me if I'm wrong about this, okay? The Genesis one looks kind of okay, but I don't have a personal grudge against it because it didn't traumatize my childhood like the 2 Nintendo ones did. Now, there were also a couple of arcade-exclusive Jurassic Park games, and while those games were cool, they pretty much all boil down to just being Jurassic Park-themed Virtua Cop remakes with none of the goodness that made them worth porting to any home consoles or going down in history or being remembered by anyone. So let's fast forward to 2021. After years of lingering in obscurity, Jurassic World comes out. Jurassic World is kind of a miracle movie because, in my opinion, it's one of the best franchise restarting movies that just movies have ever seen. It's also probably the best Jurassic Park sequel out of any Jurassic Park sequel. Now, don't get me wrong, Lost World was cool, and it was very cool that they made Jeff Goldblum the hero. And it had that really cool radical ending where the T-Rex stomps on San Francisco, or San Diego. But overall, it didn't have the stakes or the suspense or the intrigue that the original movie had. And instead, it was just an all-out stupid action movie with dinosaurs. And then we come to Jurassic Park 3. That movie is so fucking strange because it is the Frankenstein-style odyssey of just being a literal entire movie of cut content from scenes they could not fit into Jurassic Park 1 and scenes that they took from the novel but couldn't fit in Jurassic Park 1. And somehow they took all of this, got Dr. Grant to come back, replaced the kids with another kid, and somehow reconstrued it all and repackaged it into a new movie entirely of cutscenes. A massive achievement of weirdness only accomplished by this movie and that one Anchorman sequel, which was just cut clips and outtakes from Anchorman. Now, Jurassic World, though, that movie is fucking brilliant. It has the scope of the original, but bigger. It has Bryce Dallas Howard's big fat sexy ass. It has raptors fighting alongside of Chris Pratt on a motorcycle. It has that hilarious scene where the bitchy babysitter that no one likes is eaten for the crime of being a stuck-up bitch by not one, but 2 dinosaurs. It has that weird plot where Verizon Wireless sponsors the Indominus Rex. It has unsanctioned cameos by Jimmy Fallon, the most unlikable and biggest sellout out of all the New York late-night TV talk show hosts. And I feel like Jurassic World somehow just took everything that worked about Jurassic Park, went back to it, extended it, added in that extra cynicism of capitalism that you'd normally only see in a zombie movie, and just boiled that all down to what makes a perfect movie. And then all that goodwill was thrown away in Lost Kingdom. Lost Kingdom is a complete waste of a movie. It could have just been the opening paragraph for the next movie, even though Bryce Dallas Howard's sexy fat ass got even sexier and even fatter. It only existed as a middle step to what I hope is a really cool, satisfying ending to the Jurassic World trilogy. Lost Kingdom sucked. It was a bad vampire haunted house movie starring a scary black raptor and a stupid clone girl, and then it ended with the stupid clone girl deciding to destroy the entire fucking world while a bunch of adults sit back and watch her do it. Nice job, everybody. You let the kid fuck the planet. And so that brings me to the main point of this video, Jurassic World Evolution. With the horrible NES and Super Nintendo games behind me, Jurassic Park has never seen a good video game. But you know what has seen a good video game? SimCity. The original Super NES SimCity was one of those rare perfect games where you build a city, you zone out to some super zen music, and then finally the game is done when you've built a completely working city, which usually takes you like an hour or two. Now, I wished so hard as a kid that there could have been a Jurassic Park game like SimCity. Now, eventually we got Roller Coaster Tycoon, which was the first game that let you run a theme park, and you could make roller coasters, and then eventually you could make evil roller coasters that would murder the guests. So I thought then it was just a matter of time for us to get a Jurassic Park game where you run a Jurassic Park. So 20 or 30 years later, we finally got to Jurassic World Evolution, the main subject of this video, the video game where you finally build and run Jurassic Park. The original Jurassic World Evolution, with all its DLC, is now only $30 on the Switch. This is so good, but this version is kind of a double-edged sword. Now, I have to subtext this review with the fact that I fully completed this game on the Switch. I loved every second of it. I had so much fun with it, and I played all the DLCs all the way through, and the DLCs made it such a good deal and justified everything about the purchase. But the Switch port, unfortunately, as good a game as it is, the port just has some huge glitch issues which really impact it. Now, I have a PS5 too, and now that I beat the game on the Switch, I kind of wish I just ponied up the extra cash to get the PS4 version. Now, on the PS4 version, you can't get all the DLC just with the game. You have to buy it all separately, which would have made the game 3 times more expensive. So that's why I bought it on the Switch. I also bought it on the Switch because I wanted to play the game portably. I just like playing Switch games in bed and on the couch sometimes. But still, the Switch version, kind of a mistake. To explain briefly what's up with this game, this is probably one of the worst Switch video game ports I've ever seen, even if the DLC makes it feel like a fully completed game. The game runs significantly different and significantly flawed based on how you play it on the Switch. If you play the game undocked, the game will play great, but unfortunately, the graphics on the game get blurry. I have never seen a game that straight up fucked over its graphics so hard when you play it undocked. Now on the flip side, if you play the game docked, then the game looks beautiful and it runs great most of the time, until your park gets too big. Now on certain maps, you need to make a really big park, and when you make a really big park, the game gets really laggy and glitchy, and eventually the frame rate starts to take a hit, and eventually it's lagging as bad as the first-person segments from the Super NES Jurassic Park game. And on top of that, the Switch version also has some strange miscellaneous glitches. Now, I don't know what is up with this, but every once in a while on the Switch version, I would encounter some really nightmare-inducing glitch dinosaurs At first, it was just a Brachiosaurus with a broken neck here or there, where the neck was glitching out and it was like falling into the ground or like up its ass or whatever. But then at one point, I found this really, really disturbing glitched Triceratops, which just looked like a turd or a twitching tumor of like dissected body parts. It really, really played up the folly of genetically modified mutations. Now, the other bad thing about this game is, as far as I can tell, this game was micromanaged to hell by the DLC packs and the purchases that you would normally have to make to play this game if you weren't playing it on the Switch. Now, I'm glad I played it on the Switch because it did have all the DLC unlocked, and that way it did feel like the full and complete experience, because otherwise I get the sense that the way things are like divided in this game, you'd probably be paying like $5 to unlock each dinosaur in this game, which would make the game unplayable, which is a pretty apocalyptic thing to comprehend in terms of like just the overall experience of how video games work. And yeah, that also sets up another one of this game's biggest flaws, which I'm going to have to talk about later because I'm trying so hard right now not to spoil the game for you guys. Now, I also need to try very hard in this review to keep my non-spoiler opinions and my spoiler section separate, because I need to be honest with you guys. Once I knew what I was doing in this game, and once I knew what made the hot dog into Jurassic Park hot dogs, this game suddenly got so much less fun, which is something I have not experienced in a video game in quite a while. Now, there are 4 major campaigns in this game. These were originally separate DLC packs, but the Complete Edition mixes them together in such a way that they overlap just a bit, but that creates a few problems too, which is kind of the double-edged sword I was talking about earlier. Now, if you've beaten one of these campaigns, you're going to be stronger going into the others. Now, let's kind of just break down what all these campaigns are. The first is the main Jurassic World campaign, which is the core game of Jurassic World Evolution. This is where you make the Jurassic World. This is the main meat and potatoes of the game. It's got 5 big maps. The first 2 are basically just hard and easy versions of the same thing. Then there's 2 that have these crazy geographically induced headaches. And then the final mission really flips the script on you to make for a really challenging experience. And that's all super interesting and fun to play. Now, also each map has 3 missions based on either science, entertainment, and security that have to be cleared in order to unlock all the content, as well as a number of randomly generated contract challenges, which I'm going to save off from talking about until I get to the spoiler section at the end. Now, after that is the Lost Kingdom campaign. Now, this is a more adventure, less simulation-based campaign, which pretty much serves as a prequel for the movie Jurassic World Lost Kingdom. Now, this campaign was awesome, and instead of building parks, this campaign is more just missions designed to be played by controlling a park ranger and fighting or dealing with the dinosaurs on a first-person, ground-level basis. But this was also the hardest campaign in the game, with the highest chances of you screwing everything up and having to start it over, which did happen to me. So for this and that reason, I had to beat this one last. Now, the third and, in my opinion, best DLC is the Fixed Jurassic Park DLC, which was the most deeply satisfying experience in this game. Despite having a few convoluted story missions in the middle of it, so in the normal Jurassic World campaign, one of the last things you unlock is the island of Isla Nublar, the island from the original Jurassic Park movie, which sounded so cool, but then when you get to it, it's completely wasted in the original campaign as a sandbox mode, and it's just useless. All you can do with it is build jump wraps so you can unlock skins for your Jeep, one of which is the original Jurassic Park skin, which is something you want to do right away. Now, I was really wishing that this would be more of a dilapidated Jurassic Park map, like what we saw briefly in that one scene in Jurassic World where they went back to the old Jurassic Park facilities. And thankfully, this Jurassic Park DLC finally gives you that. It's presented as a what if they fixed Jurassic Park right away, immediately after the events of the first film. But in my personal headcanon, I feel like this acts way better as like an unseen middle ground between the events of Jurassic Park 3 and the events of Jurassic World. Now, the Jurassic Park campaign has some major different rules and a lot of different elements to utilize compared to the normal campaign because it's supposed to be set in the 1990s, so it has its own really cool 1990s flavor. But at the same time, because of that, it feels a lot less important than the other campaigns because it doesn't tie back into them in the same way that the other three do. Now, all of those main three campaigns can be started from the second you boot up the game. But, as I said before, don't start with the Lost Kingdom campaign, it's not intended for beginners. Now, there's also a fourth and final campaign, which consists of these 2 Dr. Wu challenge missions that unlock the Indominus Rex and a bunch of other crazy hybrid dinosaurs just for fun. Now, what threw me off with these missions is these are mixed into the main Jurassic World campaign in a kind of semi-organic way where they just seem like extra levels, but I didn't realize that they were originally DLC. And because of that, they have randomly generated quests that you can't complete until you've cleared the other DLC campaigns, which unfortunately pigeonholes you into needing to do these missions last. Which really sucks because these missions unlock some of the coolest items in the game, and once you're done them, there's kind of not that much left to do. But I guess with the structure of the other DLCs, there would be no real way to carry those items over anyway. So, c'est la vie. So, giving this game a review score is going to be somewhat tricky. I would have just given this game a 9 on the basis that it's a fucking brilliant game. It's the long-awaited best goddamn Jurassic Park game I've wanted to see my entire life. And I want to think if I was playing this game on the PC or the PS4 or the PS5, I would have given this game that 9. Now, the thing of it is, you need the DLC to have the full game. The DLC, as far as I know, is only included with the Switch version. And the Switch version, I have to give a 7 to. Just for the fact that this game's been around and the fact that they haven't fixed any of these very obvious gameplay glitches in the port, it just speaks to me that whoever ported this game to the Switch barely fucking played it because it runs like shit when you dock it on the Switch and it looks like shit when you undock it on the Switch. So again, this is one of the worst Switch video game ports I have ever seen in my life, and it's a fucking crime because I wanted to play and love this game so goddamn much, and it was otherwise a great goddamn game. So apparently the third Jurassic World movie is going to come out next year, and right now Jurassic World Evolution 2 has just come out as a direct tie-in promo setup for that movie. But I have no interest in playing a tie-in game for a movie I haven't seen yet, so I'm just going to ignore that game exists for the next 2 years. But I'm guessing since that just came out, that's why the original game is so cheap all of a sudden. So if I ever do feel like revisiting this concept, which I think I eventually will, I will probably get Jurassic World 2 Evolution on the PS5 in 2 years when I'm ready for it. Okay, spoiler section now. Oh my god, I was holding this back so much. Oh my god. Okay, do not watch this video if you have not purchased or played this game already, because what I'm about to say is only going to matter to people who have already done both of those things. And it will definitely negatively impact your gameplay if you listen to me. This game is honestly just so much more fun when you don't know what you're doing. Like, it's driving me nuts right now. This game was so much fun when I started. Because I was happy, I was ignorant, I was just making shit for the sake of making it, trying to fulfill contract missions at random. But then I got better at the game, and I realized that the fastest way to unlock all the content in this game is by just choosing a contract branch and maxing it out before you start on all the others. Now, if you don't do this, then the different contract branches will sabotage your park, and you'll get blackouts and the dinosaurs will escape. And you'll never unlock any of the good shit, which can only be unlocked by having the contract quotas maxed out for like once. It was never explained to me in the game, but there's all these different stats that you have to max out. Like, for example, every park has a dinosaur quota, which you have to like go into like the back room stats and like look up. The dinosaur quota is where the game gets hard because fulfilling the quota in like almost every map requires pumping out a factory assembly line of like a bazillion dinosaurs. Now, some of which just go right in the mouth of other dinosaurs. And my initial pacifistic feelings were like, I'm gonna be better than the movies. I'm gonna make a Jurassic Park that doesn't break. I don't want the dinosaurs to eat each other. I'll make a reasonable amount of dinosaurs. But no, fuck that. The game won't allow that. You'll never make money that way. You need to make a Jurassic Park where the dinosaurs are packed in cages like sardines, where the dinosaurs are living and sleeping on top of other dinosaurs. Some dinosaur species love this idea because they're so social, but other dinosaurs hate it, and then they'll escape to wreck up your Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville. And then I found out that the dinosaurs all have these little ID cards on them that tell you if they're happy or not. And some species won't be happy unless they have like 8 dinosaur best friends and a perfect balance of trees and swampland in their pens. And then on top of that, it turns out that to beat the game, you not only have to max out the dinosaur's happiness, but the human being happiness, which is mostly just related to selling alcohol and toy shops and fucking bathrooms. And the bathrooms just lose you non-stop money, but if you don't have them open and you don't have enough people going in them, then everyone pees their goddamn pants. The blissful joy of running Jurassic Park, it slowly dissolved into the dog-eat-dog world of high-stakes capitalism needed to properly make enough money to run a Jurassic Park, the grander mechanics of which I never previously considered. And then there were all these other crazy things I never considered, like what really puts this game over the top is they give you full control of the dinosaurs' genetic DNA creation in such a way that it made me way more aware than any previous game that the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park aren't actually dinosaurs. They're genetically modified, frog-skinned, giant chickens that resemble what scientists and the media think dinosaurs look like. Perfect example of this. Take Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus in this game is literally the Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 3, which came out 20 years ago. But as we now know, the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3 was incredibly scientifically inaccurate because archaeologists discovered 5 years ago a brand new fossil that gave the Spinosaurus a giant tail like an oarfish. But fuck it, the Spinosaurus in Jurassic World Evolution is the clone of what they thought they looked like in Jurassic Park 3. That's what they looked like 20 years ago because it was inaccurate and nostalgia has taken place over historical accuracy. This reminds me of the stupid movement on Twitter where everyone was like, hey, what if all the dinosaurs were fluffy? So then everyone started doing all this fucking dinosaur art where they look like giant fluffing penguins and whatever. And yeah, that sounds great until you remember that crocodiles and turtles exist, and crocodiles and turtles aren't fluffy. So those probably resemble dinosaurs more than any of that other stuff. So nice try, you Twitter communists, but that's wrong. So coming back to the game, fucking with the dinosaurs' genetic code is crazy interesting. It really unlocks my inner mad scientist, but then it costs a bunch of money to do it. It makes the dinosaurs more expensive to clone. It makes them emotionally unstable, so they're more likely to break out, and I'm inclined to not want to do it because putting those dinosaurs back in their cages is really tedious. But then sometimes the mission requires you to do it, and also you get more dinosaur points with less dinosaurs if you do it. So, that's another catch-22. And then the result of this is that the later stages of the game turn into this massive balancing act of trying to use the limited land you have to max out the perfection of the park, the happiness of the dinosaurs, the happiness of the human, focusing on clearing out all the contracts before moving on to the other maps where you unlock more shit. And because of how convoluted this all is, and how long it takes me to realize all this, I had to play through every map like 3 fucking times. The first time I played through, I was just trying to unlock the missions because that's how you move on to other maps. Then I had to come back at the end and do it all over again because I realized I had to get 5 stars on all the parks. But then I had to come back a third time and did a final roll through when at the end I realized that also to unlock all the dinosaur species, I had to max out all the contract unlocks, which if I had known from the get-go that the contract unlocks mattered so much, I would have focused on them first. But at the same token, I didn't know that that mattered, and if I had been focusing on that, I would not have had any fun with the game. So literally I had the most fun with this game when I was just fucking around trying to keep my park working, keep the dinosaurs from escaping, and just being completely clueless why they were escaping in the first place. But I got fucking fed up with that, and I killed a bunch of dinosaurs because I didn't realize that the dinosaurs had needs and you could talk to them and figure out what their needs were. A lot of them were just lonely, they didn't have enough friends, and I killed them uselessly. But god damn it, this was such a great experience, and it did fulfill the lifelong itch I've had of having a good Jurassic Park video game experience. And I'm utterly satisfied and utterly happy that I did beat this game, because it really was the best Jurassic Park game ever. Now, I still kind of want to go back and beat Jurassic Park on the NES, but I don't think I will unless someone hacks it so I can get through this game with enough ammo to shoot all the fucking infinitely respawning dinosaurs. But I don't know, maybe I could try playing it on the NES Classic with save states and rewinding. Maybe that will give me an edge. Alright, you guys, thank you for letting me talk for half an hour about fucking Jurassic Park and wasting your time. I was Buster Green. I like dinosaurs. Please subscribe. Thank you.